Being prepared is as important as the skill and knowledge you have, and counting an item can make a huge difference in surviving an unexpected event, whether we venture outdoors on foot or in recreational vehicles, or face a natural disaster or man-made. In this video we will be examining in detail a new emergency food ration developed by nutritionists to face these varied scenarios. The TAC-BAR tactical by its acronym in English. I invite you to stay to know it, and welcome back to our Bushcraft Latin America channel. The ration is wrapped in an aluminized paper with antibacterial treatment and sealed to the void, to guarantee a duration of up to 5 years stored. 5 of these will come along with other elements, in a plastic box similar to military ammunition, that after being consumed rations can be recycled for multiple functions. Here we are sealed as the ration's 10 water purification pills, and a can with a survival kit. We will see in a moment, because first we will open and try a ration. Inside we find bar that is divided into 3 segments, in theory breakfast, lunch and dinner for 5 days, based on the average consumption of an adult, that is 2,500 calories daily. However, in an extreme case in which we have to ration to a minimum consumption of 830 calories a day, could allow us to survive 15 days. More than enough time for a rescue, evasion or help, the situation in which we find ours. Now we are going to try it out to try to describe the flavor. Definitely feel the oats and the coconut. Its texture is almost identical to that of the Neapolitan cake. I do not know if they have tried it, although that cake has chocolate, and this instead of chocolate tastes like coconut and oatmeal. Sweet. It is note that it comes from honey. You can feel the honey. The taste is pleasant. To be a survival ration, the most obvious question would be if it would be tolerable to eat it for several days in case of emergency, and the answer is yes, since we can also eat it dry, like cream or boiling it in water. The base ingredients are wheat, cornstarch, oats, coconut and honey, although enriched with a huge list of proteins, carbohydrates, fats, salts, sugars, vitamins and minerals. In essence, everything a human body requires to be nourished and stay alive, especially when there is a high physical requirement. Its size as well as its time duration gives us many applications in the survival, either for disasters, evasion or backup in our equipment for the outdoors. For the case of home preparation for disasters, of course it is advisable to also store grains, canned and other non-perishable foods, but we must be aware that these can usually expire in only 1 or 2 years, not to mention that they may require cooking, so you must have extra gas and water for this. And in an emergency we might not have them, which is why we should also have this type of freeze-dried rations. Sure to hear this gas, many are thinking now, well, but what happens with wood? And it turns out they are not taking into account the tactical aspect. Cooking in this type of post-disaster situation can be counterproductive, and more if it is with wood. You must take into account that there are people hungry and the expectation of doing everything possible to get food to survive, and you would be announcing several hundred of meters to the round that you have food, something very dangerous, since if you investigate a little past cases you will see that the most dangerous part of a disaster sometimes is not the disaster itself, if not the later situation in which they are left, sometimes survivors, isolated, without electricity, gas, water, food or authorities that generate order for several days or weeks, breeding ground for the offenders, and any armed people come out to loot and snatch what they need. To unarmed people, this is not alarmism. It was after the earthquake in Haiti, after the Katrina hurricane in New Orleans, and here in Venezuela after the Vargas tragedy, to say a few, where there were a lot of looting, house raids, food killings and even post-tragedy violations. So we should think about all this when it comes to storing food for disasters, a proper solution to these cases, and that allows the TAC-BARs to have a predetermined evacuation place, and buried at intermediate recognizable points some of these boxes, to look for them on our way there after a disaster, and to have provisions to make a trip on foot if necessary, reducing the weight of luggage and the risk that we take all our resources during the trip. In the case of using them as backup for outdoor activities, they can be useful in recreational vehicles, whether all-terrain, boat, or plane, since walking in these usually exposes us to be stranded away from civilization, so that concerns the camp and bushcraft. Just by loading a bar in our backpack as a backup, covers us with many eventualities if we run out of food, or extends the ride more than scheduled. Another intended tactical application of this ration is in combat, since it allows a soldier to feed without leaving his post to cook or prepare his food, in order to maintain his energy and concentration in the mission he performs, without betraying his position by cooking a traditional military ration. And since we speak of this comparison, it is important to say that it is also cheaper than a military ration. As water purification tablets, there are 10, which does not allow processing 10 liters, something very necessary in all types of emergencies. The can with the survival kit is new in the TAC-BAR, and is the result of the direct order of users, as an earlier version came with a belt. This has several basic elements that we have reviewed in previous videos. However, we'll try to review and explain in detail for those who joined the channel. Comes in a can of 12.5 cm long by 10 cm wide and 4 cm deep. The lid comes sealed by the edge with gray tape to prevent moisture. Inside we will find a fishing line, with 2 hooks, 2 lead weights and a plastic lure in case there is no bait to fish. A composite flint, which in addition to the flint has a part of magnesium, which provides us with very flammable chips to make the fire easier, although this in itself is the back of the 10 anti-storm matches that guarantees a simpler fire of achieving that with a flint. A tea candle, either to illuminate or use as fuel if the tinder is wet. A multi-purpose card, with 10 functions that among the main are, the open cans, bottle opener, knife, and saw. Another important item that includes the kit is an emergency blanket, which allows us many applications, from sheltering directly with it, improvising a poncho, to making multiple configurations of improvised shelters, passing through heat reflector, since inclined from this way besides covering their rain, reflects the body heat or the fire towards us, can also be a rainwater collector, improvise a solar oven, water desalinizador, signal mirror, and many others. Here we have a small button compass, to have a basic orientation. Finally we get 2 shavings, which provide a much higher edge than the multi-purpose card to process small dams and other tasks. The can itself can be very useful in other applications, for example cooking, boiling water, or use as a reflector of candlelight and for winds for this. You can also give alternative uses the plastic box, as we can use it to store up to 3 liters of water, and use it as a canteen if necessary. Actually, the TAC-BAR is complete enough for me to cope with an emergency for the time needed to get out of it, although both the box and the can leave us space to add more things that we consider useful, as for example a razor and rope parachute to do not spend the fishing line in a shelter with the blanket. I hope you enjoyed the review there, and the concept of the TAC-BAR. It is not enough to remind you that as always we'll leave the links to acquire it and others that may be of interest in the description. Also remember that if you want to support the channel just enough to indicate that you liked the video and share it on any of your social networks, to be aware of the next videos you just have to subscribe and activate the notifications as you see on the screen. Likewise, you can follow us on Facebook. Until an upcoming video.